Guys, welcome to the First Responder Playbook. I'm excited to have Erik Holt with me tonight. Erik's a former fire chief from Colorado that has an awesome story of corruption and, the fight that we all want to have that fight to get rid of corruption. And unfortunately, he's having to do it out of his own pocket right now. And I want to help him bring a platform to help bring justice back to him and his battle. So, Erik, the floor is yours. I'll let you give yourself a proper introduction.
Right on. Well, I appreciate it. My name is Erik Holt. As Brent mentioned, former fire chief. Now I run emergency services at the county level. But first and foremost, I'm a father and a patriot and a citizen of this country, first responder, and a U.S. Army veteran. So, you know, the situation that we'll get into and the story I'll tell is something I never thought I'd experience, never thought I'd be in the middle of. But here I am, and I'm here to share the story. I think not only myself never expected this, but I'm sure no first responder out there would ever even suspect they'd be in some crazy story, some crazy situation, and have to battle with the moral battle on what to do. So if I can be an example, I'm here to share that story and hope that others will take that stand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell my listeners a little bit about your background and how you got into the fire service originally.
Okay, awesome. So, lived in a small town growing up, and I was fortunate enough when I was like 15, 16 years old. I was working at a butcher shop in the local grocery store, and the volunteer fire chief came in. He's like, "Hey, you ever thought about firefighting?" And I'm like, I'm a punk teenage kid, doing what I could to get by every day. And he said, "Why don't you come by?" And I went, and I mean that day changed my life. I've been in love with the fire service ever since. So, coming from a small town, I didn't know what the path was. So we were a nation at war in 2003. So I joined up in the U.S. Army, and I was lucky enough to get what is a very small MOS or job specific in the Army, which was firefighter. So I got to go to Texas, do my fire academy there, got certified, and did 5 years active duty, a year in Iraq, and then when I got out, I was stationed at Fort Hood Fire, and so the chief there saw some potential in me and hired me right into the same slot I was in the military as a civilian, and really launched my professional career. Did 18 years in Department of Defense at Fort Hood and Fort Carson fire departments as a civilian. And then in 2022, I took a fire chief's job at a special district in Colorado, up in the mountains by Pikes Peak. So, um, just followed the journey, man. It's been fun.
That's awesome. My father actually was a firefighter in the Navy. He eventually came to the bright side and became a police officer, but deep down inside, his original love was firefighting, and
All right. Well,
I
hey, the only thing that separates us is test scores, right?
yeah, absolutely, and that's what I tell somebody all the time is we may give each other a hard time, but only we can do that.
Absolutely, man. It's a rite of passage for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell me about it. You got on as a chief in Colorado. Um, how did that? How did you pick Colorado, and then how did you end up with that agency?
Yeah, so I mean, fate has it, I guess. But I always wanted, like when I was in the army, I wanted to be stationed at Carson. You get like a dream list of your duty stations, and Mountains of Colorado was always my number one. So I had an opportunity to transfer there as a civilian, and I did. I moved into the community that became the chief during COVID. So I didn't really get to know anybody, but I did meet some of the fire department out on calls or doing this and that, and um, they were in the midst of chaos before the chaos. But um, the chief prior to me had gotten into some trouble, and they brought me in as an interim initially, just because they knew me and I was on the like the Type 3 incident management team within the county. So they asked me to be an interim, and I called my fire chief and said, "Hey, like, can I go on leave and help out?" And he's like, "Absolutely, it'll be, do your thing." And so I burned all my leave. It was supposed to be 2 weeks, but it kept rolling and rolling and rolling over. So all of a sudden, it was like 5 months, and um, I kind of took a bet on myself because that chief had left under not good terms. You know what I'm saying? But the position for full time was open, and uh, I battled with it. Man, I had a great life at Carson. I was on a great crew. Shout out to the boys there. I mean, I loved it, but I had gotten full custody of my daughters, and they're both teenagers at the time. So I got two of them, and so the thought of being local and at home every night, and responding from home, worked family life, and so my leave was out, and I had to make a decision. So I quit with no job offer after 18 years, and applied, and it paid off. I was selected as the permanent fire chief, and um, it was a small town, kind of ramshackled, like had been ran into the ground department. We had like 4 or 5 responders when I took over, and from the point I got hired until the end of my tenure, we had built up to 62 people. The most trained and qualified, certified guys. We had guys and gals. We had 12 EMTs active, which for a small town is quite a bit. Anybody,
Absolutely.
yeah, listening from small town America, any department that has 60 members, whether you're a professional or volunteer department, is a lot. And our response times and all of our metrics were the best they'd ever been. So I was real proud of what we had built. And then things changed rapidly. A little foreshadowing.
So let me ask you this. I know you said like all 5 seats got up for election at one time. So there was a whole new, you know, council committee that came in.
Yeah.
Was there any like signs of this beforehand? Like, how did all 5 come up at once, and like, what changed?
Yeah. So what I guess the route that had happened is when I got the call, there had been 3 board members resigned. They had gotten into some situation with the chief, and the chief sort of, I guess, gave them the ultimatum of like, if you don't do what I want and hire these people and give me this contract, then I'm taking everybody with me. And so they kind of like reacted and resigned. But what that did is vacate their seats. So when I got the call, there was 1 board member still left. And he called and he asked me to kind of come in and situate things and kind of help him determine what was going on. And then it turned out about a month into that his voter registration was registered to a different state because he owned 2 residences and he was like transitioning. So it turned out he wasn't able to hold that seat. And so poof, all of a sudden there was no board members. And Colorado's a little different. So the fire marshal, or the one with the authority for like the legal stuff, is the county sheriff. So talking with him, he said, and that's state law. Every fire marshal for every county in Colorado is the sheriff. So, I had his support to like stay in place so that the fire department could operate still. And it actually went to this special process that I don't know that gets done often or had ever, but the county commissioners had to appoint a new board. And so they went through like this interview process for probably a month or so. And they selected 3 from the community to establish a quorum of the board. And then those 3 would appoint and fill out the rest of it, giving them legal authority. So it was kind of this crazy even beginning, but I was blessed with some really good board members that had no part of anything. Like, they didn't come from one allegiance or anybody else. That kind of happens in small towns. You know what I'm saying? And so they literally said, "What do we need to do? You're the guy. You're the one that has a career in this. We're just regular citizens, no firefighting experience." And we got to work, and we just built something that was pretty damn amazing.
So, how long the time frame once they appointed these, interim board members? How long is this time frame once they establish that quorum again until the special election to fill all 5 seats?
I think it was about 9 months, and then so it actually wasn't a special election; it was just a normal cycle.
Okay.
But they, it really became like these HOA battles of like who wanted to control and who had the best ideas. It got really weird. But I thought, and being impartial, because I just had a job to do, that the board had supported enough, and we had grown so dramatically that they were in pretty good shape. So I thought, and like right before the election, I had this crazy idea when I first started, and I pitched it to them of like, let's do this thing called a family fire muster, where we have kids competitions and we have a barbecue. We have a live band. So it was like, I pitched it as this like small town America 4th of July gathering, but it was also a fundraiser for the department. And we smashed all records. We had hundreds of people out there. We raised like 27 grand in one day.
Wow.
And we had a major fire like 2 weeks before the elections. And so everything lined up. Like we kicked butt on that fire. Like all of our crews were out there. We had a female crew that got sponsored by Women in Fire, not sponsored, but like highlighted by them,
Right.
that went national, went viral. And so like, I wasn't really concerned about the election. I mean, one, I'm not an elected official. I'm a fire chief at this time. And I assume that everybody's running for it had the best interest of the community and the department when they sign up to run for election. So maybe I was a little naive to that, but yeah, that's it was like 9 months, and then boom, we're in the midst of this election.
So you gotta um, forgive my ignorance a little bit, but like in Oklahoma, a lot of times, especially for smaller fire agencies, their boards are there may be a couple thousand people voting in these elections. Like how many people are probably voting in this election, like in the fire district?
So the department I was at hadn't had like any electors come forward, so it was kind of like auto elected basically for
Okay.
years. But in the surrounding area, so our district was 55 to 6,500 people and 66 square miles. So, um, a good election at the local level is 10%. So we kind of figured that. But in the neighboring districts, they would get 100 to 150 people for any single candidate. You know what I'm saying? And that was a
Right.
good turnout. I mean, in small town America, people aren't super concerned about their fire boards. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. You're not wrong there. It's a low turnout election. So what changed where all of a sudden they're getting, candidates? Like, was there a big event that, like, everybody's like, oh, now we're signing up? Like, what changed?
So you had some loud people from one. There was two kind of HOAs, and they kind of aligned, um, which is kind of just a weird scenario, right? But it's a bunch of people that just thought they had the best ideas, and they had their agenda, and they were very loud and very vicious and very nasty, and so um, they they had originally, like, a lot of them had applied when the county commissioners had done this interview process and selected, and so maybe they were rubbed a little wrong. They weren't picked. There was some that were mad that their friend, the old chief, was gone. There was some that wanted to do some weird, like, fire mitigation burns that we weren't allowing. So there's, everybody had their own interest, I guess.
That's just crazy. Um, so jump into the events that happened. So election happens. There's definitely some irregularities. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so because it was a contentious election, the board that was seated voted, and this is going to come up later as we talk. But so Colorado statutes and the law says that election is a governance of the board of directors, and so they hire a law firm to use one of their people to be the designated election official, and then another person they hired as the deputy election official. So they run it. I had to fight pretty hard to like not get pulled in by like the opposing side, and so the decision was made like, I'll unlock the building. I'll work from a remote location, not at the fire station, and just do what I do, respond to calls. And so uh, sadly enough, we got a cardiac call, and I had to go to the station, set up the medevac, and the gentleman doesn't make it. So now you're kind of there in the ambulance with um, a body, basically, right? And the medevac had landed. So I'm there. I'm physically at the place, and people are coming in and out of the station after we shut it down for the medevac, of course, and then kind of open traffic back up.
So just for
Uh,
clarity, like the whole election is taking place at the fire department.
yeah, at the main
Oh,
station.
so it's not like different polling places across the county. It's all happening at the fire station.
Right, yeah, because it's a special district. So like all special district elections were going on, but ours was located at the main fire station.
Okay, okay.
So while I'm there, the non-incumbents, the ones that aren't seated that are in the election, are like really kind of disrespectful. And like when I was landing the helicopter, I was like, "Hey, you guys got to go inside or get in your vehicles or whatever." And they kind of like thumbed their nose to me and came and sat on a tailgate. So it was kind of really weird, and it was disrespectful, especially the gravity of what the call was. There's like an active
Right.
CPR going on. But so it takes an hour or so to like work the guy. We go through, anybody that's first responder knows the kind of the order of things, and we call it right. And so I have to leave with the medic and their lieutenant and go notify the family. Like,
Okay.
we had taken the guy from his house. He was awake, coded, en route. So his family wasn't aware that he had passed. So we go over there. We do the very hard job. Anybody that's been in that situation, but that's my role. I'm the fire chief of the district, right? So we go, we handle that situation, and I come back to get my command vehicle, and I get stopped by a citizen that's like, "Hey, there's something wonky going on here." And what they were reporting to me was, if you've ever been to an election location, there's usually a perimeter around it where it's a no electioneering zone.
Right.
And they show me a picture, and it's a poll watcher that's on their phone within that thing. And they go, "They're doing something weird. Like, I heard this lady come out and say, like, oh, did you already pay them?" And getting a vehicle description. I'm like, that sounds weird, but it's not my job. So I take them into the designated election official, and I'm like, "Hey, tell them what you need. This is their administration to run this election." And I leave. And then there was like 2 other calls for the day where I had to like stop in and get med supplies or whatever. But the election is declared that same night, like, I don't know, 8:00 at night or something. And they post on the station is how it's officially, and then the DEO will post on the website. So that's the official, like, legal way. Well, these folks were posting it before it was declared. And so it was very weird that they had totals. But it was kind of like whatever, because they were at the station and they're poll watchers. So, whatever. Is it against the law to post election results before? Yes, absolutely. But it happens. And then the numbers were like, wait, what? And so
Right.
there was a little bit of shock for sure. And I had to meet the DEO after everybody had left and locked the building. And she kind of, like, in passing, she was like, "What a crazy day. This is absolutely insane." And so I go back, and I'm not really affected by it. Like, during my tenure, I've had 2 separate boards that I've worked great for both. And now I'm, an election's over. I'm going to work for a new board in a month when the transition happens. So I'm not really affected. That doesn't bother me at all. And then I'm in town like the next day, and somebody like comes up to me and says, "Hey, like, these people were like filming me." And I'm like, "What? Who?" Like, "The poll watchers." And I'm like, "Oh man, I don't like this at all." So I call the attorney that represents our district and kind of pass that on. And this is the same law firm that hired the DO. So they also represent the liability of the district, the entity of the department, right? So I talked to the attorney, and she's like, "This is really concerning. Like, I got to kind of figure out what to do here." kind of just do your job, Eric. Like I'm like, cool, got it. And so a couple more conversations happen, and like there's something that's there. And so in my I've got 2 pages where I'm making like long form videos right now and showing all the evidence of everything. And so in one of those videos, it kind of talks about like I was faced with a moral dilemma all of a sudden. Like, let's be clear, my best interest is to just shut the F up and not get involved, because it's against the people that have been declared as the winners of the election, who's going to be my bosses, the board of directors. But man, I'm like, it's a gut burn for like 2-3 days while I'm hearing things, and I'm talking to the attorney, and I go, I'm just laying in bed when I go like, I'm a single dad with 2 daughters. Like, what do you do, man? But I took an oath as a citizen of this country when I joined the military, and taken oath since. And I was raised to believe in the Constitution and our democracy, and you protect it, right? Like, I didn't join the military and go to war in Iraq for nothing. So that's the internal dilemma going on during these few days. And so one day after work, I go to Walmart, buy a thumb drive, and I go to this third-party vendor that operated the security system for the fire station. And I say, hey, like, here's a thumb drive. How much is it? But I need this day's footage on these cameras during these times. And, they're like, okay, cool. This is how much it'll be, and we'll get it in a day or so. And I'm like, all right, cool. Appreciate it. So I get it. The next day, I think they called me like, hey, you can come pick it up. So I pay them. And in that video, I mentioned I'm talking about it. I remember like cooking dinner for the girls, like putting them to bed, like any other thing that I needed to do in life took precedence, because I was kind of like, I don't even know what I'm looking for,
Right.
And so girls go to bed, and I decided I would start with reading the election statutes and the rules regarding them for the state of Colorado. So I do that. I read them, I print them out, and I sit down, and there's like 40 hours of footage, and I don't know what I'm looking for, but I just start watching. And it takes quite a while, man, but I start to see things, and then I would have to switch to another camera and try to follow the timeline and see where these people were moving and what they were doing. But eventually the whole picture comes into play, and I could literally go down the list and go, they're violating this law, they're violating this rule, blah, blah, blah. So it's like 1501-08 or something is the election law for Colorado special districts. And as I start putting pieces together, like I'm like, oh my God, this is election fraud. Holy cow. And without being able to show your viewers, basically what happened is inside the fire station, the main camera that I was able to watch overlooks the poll watcher table. And then in front of them is the station main hall and the voting booths. So when somebody walked in, like the shield, I guess, or, the barrier thing that they put up, you couldn't see what they were doing. Like, that's the front view, but I could see what the poll watchers were doing. And then the other camera was in front of the station, pointed right into the parking lot, which was that entire perimeter. So my first thing I clued in on was the poll watchers have something in their hand that they're doing in action. And then I kind of put that to they're confirming something, and then they're doing in action. And then, poll watcher rules is like no electronic devices, no computers, laptops, phones. They're supposed to sit here, be quiet, observe. That's it. But these poll watchers are getting up, interacting with voters, going outside, and kind of rotating. Like, they're doing that, and then they're on their phone, they're texting. So the scheme that I watched basically over all this footage was what the thing that they had in their hand was track counters. So you ever seen one of those things where you click it and it counts?
Yes.
So there's like 4 of the 6 poll watchers have those. And then at one point early in the day, like, this lady opens a laptop and she's filming the room, which is a huge violation of election law.
Right.
And then they're on their phones. And so what was happening is they would get up. Somebody was offsite incentivizing voters to come in. They would get the description of what it was, what vehicle, what the people look like. One of them would walk out, confirm that was the person they were looking for, give them the names to vote for. They would go in, register, go to the ballots. When they confirmed it, they would click. Then they would leave. And so throughout the day, they're keeping tabs on how many people they need to incentivize to come in and vote for the specific names. And then the sort of biggest part was right under that front camera, late in the day, they have a conversation. One of the candidates and 3 of the poll watchers meet under that camera, and I guess they didn't know. I don't know. I mean, they couldn't have picked a better spot, right? But they detailed what the numbers were, what the counts looked like. And the lady says, as long as we stay under 800 total voters, we've got it. It's done deal. And then...
so just for clarification, this camera picks up audio and video.
The outside one does, yeah.
Yeah. And so you can hear and see everything they're talking about at this point.
Yeah, when they stood under the camera, it was crystal clear. There was other spots where, like, throughout the day, one of the poll watchers would go out and meet them, and you could hear them telling names. But it was super clear when all the pieces came together. Like, wow. I remember like that light bulb moment where I was like, oh my God, like this isn't happenstance. This isn't a couple violations. This is a coordinated effort with these candidates and their poll watchers. And somebody's offsite. Fraud. Yeah, it's fraud, 100%. And so once I view that, I reach out to the attorney. I say, hey, it's confirmed. You know what I'm saying? And she's like, I got to talk to my partners. We got to figure out how to go about this. This isn't a normal situation. And so what happens, and I don't know this at the time, but she's also talking to the incumbent president, but she makes the decision as an attorney to file a case with the district attorney's office and then recuse herself as representation of the district because her employee ran the election as the DO, and so now she's got a conflict. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so she calls me. We have a conversation about that. I'm like, I understand. She's like, you need to be careful. Like, I don't know what comes of this. I've never experienced this, but you got to be careful. And I guess the warrior in me was like, oh yeah, let's go. Right. So I immediately called the DA and I'm like, hey, I got something for you and I need you to come meet me. And I don't know if you ever talked to a DA's office, but you don't get the person you're after. So
for sure.
And in my naiveness, I was like, can I talk to the district attorney? And they're like, no. What are you calling for? And this is a big city. Colorado Springs is a huge city. So a couple 100,000 people. So I eventually get a return call from a DA investigator. And he's like, hey man, I want to come meet with you and see what you have to show me. When can we do that? I'm like, first thing in the morning tomorrow, like meet me before I go to work, basically. And so I meet him and I take my laptop and I take that thumb drive and I basically open the computer and I start playing it for him. And I start, it's 40 hours. So I'm not going to sit with this guy for 40 hours. I don't even know him, but
right.
I pick out some important spots and his, like, you come from law enforcement and your dad and everything. Like, law enforcement people are fun and friendly until there's work to be done. And then like
Absolutely.
That tone change, right? So we were friendly and sitting there. And then like when I started showing him, his body posture changed. He wasn't talking as much. Yeah, he just wasn't. And he was like, man, this is bad. Like, holy cow. And he's like, can I have this thumb drive? I'm like, it's yours, man. That's evidence. And he leaves. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, wow, what a crazy scenario to be in, but like, we're good. He wasn't the investigator. He did preface that though. He said, my buddy that does election stuff is on vacation, but I'm going to meet with you. I'm going to gather this. And so now I have those records, right? I have like the reports that they do. They're law enforcement officers. So the report from that day was like, I met with Chief Holt and reviewed, and it is very clear to me that election crimes took place, I think is what he says. And so my incumbent board president, the one that I was still working for, files an injunction with the court and says, like, there's a criminal investigation launched. Like, we can't transition this right now. And so she files that. What happens is anybody familiar with how, local districts, like you have to post public agendas and everything's transparency, like there's transparency laws. So the board meeting transition was supposed to be May 24th, 2023. The elections was May 2nd. So 22 days there or whatever. On like the 22nd, she posted a public agenda that said, due to a criminal investigation, we are postponing the meeting until, I think it was June 10th. And the reason it was June 10th is because the law states that transition will happen at the next regular meeting or 30 days after the election is certified. And so June 10th was going to be the 30-day mark after the certification, allowing for this criminal investigation and the court injunction and all that. And the second that happened, man, they knew, right? They all knew. And so harassment of me, my firemen and women, the board, like the harassment went to, Mach 10, man. Like it got very chaotic. Like people were being threatened. And I have a responsibility and leadership to all of these folks. So they're like, should we be traveling to the grocery store in packs? I'm like, I mean, if it's at that level, yeah, it can't, what do you, I can't even process that, man. We're firemen here. So these folks go ballistic, and they basically said, no, we are seizing power on May 24th. And so I wrote a memorandum, and it's something that I show in my videos, but the attorney hasn't resigned yet. And I write her, I say, I need legal guidance. Who is the board of directors and who is the bosses? Because I fear not knowing is going to have an effect on the operations of the district. And that's a little foreshadowing for what's to come. So on May 24th, I'm there with one of my captains at the station, and I'm leaving. And these incumbent, two of them, Paul Del Toro, who would become the board president, and Judy Dunn, who'd become the vice president, pull up. And they're like, you better open the station or else, and I'm like, listen, I'm saying, I'm not doing anything until the attorney advises me on who's in charge and protects the liability of the district and our firemen and the civic process here and everything. And so that the memorandum goes out. She calls me and she says, I don't have a way legally to like get in the way of its board transition. So like between the two sides, they've got to come to a thing. And the second that they take over, like I submitted this stuff for a criminal investigation. Like I can no longer be. And so literally, she just like, Eric, do what's best for your people, and like let the board figure it out. And so I talked to the current board, the ones outgoing, and I say, look, like I can't get involved with it. I can't have our firemen there. So whatever happens, I won't be present for this meeting, and neither will any of my folks. And so I think it's kind of a gracious move. The outgoing board just sort of got out of the way and said, okay, like the courts and the criminal investigation will decide this. We're not going to continue disrupting a fire department in the community. And then, so now like May 25th, and they're like, we're in charge. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I still got a job to do. They hold another meeting May 25th, and they call that the regular monthly meeting. and I don't attend that. And the reason I didn't attend that was my daughter had a concert at school, and I had already like placed that on the calendar, and so they were pissed at me that I didn't go. But family first kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so it's like live streamed and stuff. So like people are messaging me like they're making a lot of decisions here. Like, are you aware of this stuff? And I'm like, I have no idea. So then May 26th, all right, I get a call from Paul Del Toro. He's now the board president. He says, I froze the bank accounts. And I'm like, you did what? I went to the bank. I froze the bank accounts. I'm like, you're not a signatory on the bank. How can you freeze the bank accounts? And if you go to my Justice for Holt Facebook page, or TikTok, both of them are under the name Justice for Holt. There is a recorded phone call that I did because I started like, okay, this is wonky. I don't feel good in this situation. So I started documenting everything. And it's a phone call where he's like, yeah, I froze the account. And like, I'll authorize any expenditures. And I'm like, okay, are bills going to get paid? He's like, oh yeah, I'll, just let me know. Whatever, man. Okay. So it's kind of an important detail, but like we head into Memorial Day weekend. This is like Friday. And so I say
Kind of a big holiday for the fire service.
Yeah, and we're in the mountains of Colorado, so it's like the
Yeah.
official start of summer up there.
Right.
So I leave into the weekend with he's like, I'm going to be gone for 4 days. The bank accounts are frozen. Let me know if you need anything. I'm like, okay, all right. We already had like a major fire 3 weeks before that, so that's the back of my head. I'm a little worried. Like, if we got a major incident, how do I keep going? But we get through the weekend, and I had him come in May 29th or May 30th. I'm sorry. So 29th was Memorial Day. The next day was Tuesday. So he meets me at the fire station. We have to renew our insurance for liability, workman's comp, all that stuff. And he signs the paper. He says, hey, email me this invoice and I'll pay when I get home. I'm like, cool. So that was sort of the end of it. But he also, as he was leaving, asked where my executive assistant was. And I had my training captain there, and he goes, where's she at? I'm like, a doctor's appointment. And he loses it. Like, not like ballistic, but like, I can't believe that her performance, like, we're going to she's going to be gone. And I'm like, hard stop, bro. You can't do that. Like, this is a medical thing. And like, I am her supervisor. I approved this. Like, you can't do that. And he gets very upset about that and storms out. And so I literally looked at my training captain, like, write a statement of what just happened, because surely, like, we're not going to start violating equal opportunity and all that
right.
stuff. And so she comes in after the appointment, and then I sit her down. I go, hey, this is what just happened. And she's like, I'm done. I can't deal with this. Like, I resign. And I'm like, oh no. All right. So she does. And
when you got to think, somebody with that amount of responsibility, that's a big loss to an agency like yours.
Oh, huge. Yeah. I mean, she was the central billing point. What I didn't know at the time, and I know now, is that he was supposed to meet with, she was a signatory on the bank. She's the only one left. He was told by the bank that she needed to come in with him. And the out of the norm reaction was because she wasn't there to do that, because the bank called him and said, this is bank fraud. You're not an authorized signatory, and we're hard freezing the accounts until all the authorizations are done. He doesn't tell me that. He tells nobody that. There is emails from the board that I have now, but for the sake of time, like, we go through this daily like disruption, and I'm trying to hang on to people. I'm getting complaint after complaint after complaint that the board is harassing members of the department. And then June 5th comes, which is a Monday. So like the following Monday, and I get an email from Alan Schultz, who's the board, like, vice secretary or something like that, who responded to the court injunction pro se. And he emails me, and I go, hey, I'm not a party to this like court thing. I should not be in this email. and he says, you need to read it because I'm asking for you to be charged with felonies. And I'm like, excuse me? So in my contract,
big accusation to make.
yeah, absolutely. And what it was is he's citing that I had access to election security footage, and in his personal interpretation of the law that was illegal. But clearly upset that he knows that I turned that evidence over to the district attorney. And so in my contract, I have an indemnification clause like every executive does. And I contact the board president, Paul Del Toro, and I say, like, hey, I need to invoke this. Like, a member of the board is threatening me with legal action in his pro se response to the court. And he kind of blows it off because, that means they got to pay for an attorney for me. And then June 6th comes, and June 6th changes everything because they are about to have a meeting, and the head item on that agenda was fire chief's duties and responsibilities, to which when they posted that, I emailed and I said, I have contractual duties and responsibilities, and my contract says that we both have to willingly enter into any negotiation. Given this, what's going on, like, my focus is going to be on operations, and I don't think this conversation is warranted at this time. Maybe a little spicier written, but I basically denied that. And so they go to start this meeting, and I get a call from the insurance. It says, you haven't paid. That was June. It was due June 1st. It's now June 6th. You haven't paid. Like, you're at risk of being canceled. And I fire off an email to him, like, I need to speak with the attorney. And what I glazed over is they had hired a new attorney who had never represented a fire department before. There seems to be some sort of connection there, but I was trying to speak with him for the week prior to June 6th about the personnel complaints, one being the EEOC federal complaint that was filed for his harassment. And he won't let me speak to that attorney. And so I have a bunch of emails back and forth where I've shared that on my pages. But all of a sudden, they get the phone call, and I said, I need to talk to the attorney, like, now. And he's like, what, blah, blah. And I had the insurance lady call him. I said, you need to talk to the board president. And basically what happens is I get a call from the entire board on speakerphone, and they say, you need to shut down operations of the fire district. And I'm like, come again? Like, you can't respond to calls. I'm like, holy, for the sake of it. So I literally have to post a memo on our website and our Facebook that says, we cannot respond to calls. Our mutual aid partners have been contacted. They will, and myself will remain in response to any emergencies. I'm sure you guys can understand the media lurch onto that. So I'm getting blown up. What is sad, what I found out later, and I just recently showed that on my pages, was Paul Del Toro, the board president, paid that immediately. And like their emails back and forth that I got through a public records request and depositions and all that, but he paid it immediately from his personal account because he knew that he couldn't pay it from the district accounts. So he pays a $23,000 bill from his personal account within 11 minutes of the phone call. Now, I don't know if you've ever done a bank transfer, but if you were going to call the bank that is supposed to process this and say, hey, I need to do this, and they go, no, you can't, which is what his story is, that he didn't know that they had hard froze the accounts, and then get on with your bank, get a person and do this transfer in 11 minutes. If that's a true story, like, I need that bank. But
yeah, I know, right?
But he doesn't notify me. And so I have it timestamped when he makes this payment and wires it. An hour later is when he tells me that I need to shut the district down. So he knows he's already paid this, but he shuts the fire district down. We are not able to respond to calls for like 3.5 hours. And like 8 p.m. at night, I get the email like, insurance paid, we're good, you can respond to calls again. So then I post it again, like, hey, really embarrassed and really sorry, but this situation's happened, and we're back in normal posture. And the media is blowing me up, man. So I did do an interview, and basically I just go like, I can't believe what's going on. I've done this for like 22 years of professional firefighting, and I've never seen this. And I'm the fire chief getting illegal directives, like hoping that like the gig's up for them, you know what I mean? And they'll stop doing, but that didn't end up being the case. So we move forward a little bit. Like, I go on vacation. So my daughters literally just get out of school during this period of time for the summer. And I haven't had a single day off in like 18 months. So for months, my department and my captains have prepared a staffing roster, and like are going to have full crews at the station every night so that I can take time off with my kids. And I'm a workaholic. So my vacation was that I was still going to respond to all the calls, and I was still going to take care of the major like leadership and training, but I wasn't going to be doing administrative duties for the most part. Right. And so it gives me a couple days of space to like breathe during this situation. And I'm spending it with my kids, and it's summer in Colorado. I'm running calls like crazy still. But for the first time, like just a leadership lesson in life, like my guys and gals had me, and they were rocking out during all this chaos. Like they were so laser focused, and a lot of them are brand new that we had trained up. And so like from a leadership perspective, to like sit back and see like how they cared for me and how they wanted me to have time off, but also like everything that I taught them was now being implemented. Like, and I'm seeing it, and I'm like, man, we like, this is what it's about. And so that happens for half a week in the weekend, and all of a sudden the board starts having executive sessions with just the attorney. But in Colorado, and I'm sure in most states, if a board is going to have an executive session, they have to post the reason and under the law at which they are doing the executive session for transparency laws. And so in Colorado specifically, if you're going to have an executive session about personnel, you have to name the personnel if they're an executive, and you have to notify them. Well, none of that is happening. And so they have 3 executive sessions, and everybody's watching right now. We've just been shut down. People are like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like, look, like the board's going to do what the board's going to do. They haven't notified me of anything, and, rock out. Like, we're going to keep doing our job until June 21st comes. And I get an email from Paul Del Toro, and he says, here's an agenda to review. We're having a meeting tomorrow, and you're requested. Now, mind you, I'm still on vacation. I'm on, going into what would have been my second week, and we're early in the week. And so I look at the agenda, and it says executive session with the attorney again. And then it says evaluate the performance and duties of Erik Holt as fire chief. So it's the first time they've named me, and he's emailing me this agenda because I'm named, and I'm actually like, they followed it this time on how it has to be posted. But immediately under it says evaluate the employment of Erik Holt as fire chief, and then the one below it, hired interim chief. So like the writing's on the wall, guys. You know what I'm saying? Everybody kind of goes crazy. I meet with my guys and gals, and I'm like, look, like it doesn't matter. I'm a figurehead. Like, you guys have the culture in your veins. Like, you all have servant hearts. You can remove me as an individual and still perform at the same level. And that's what I need your focus to be. And I was really dedicated to that. So June 22nd, 2023 comes. I come to this meeting, and like we're mostly volunteer staff, so like a lot of folks are at work still and can't make it. They did it like 4 p.m. But like 30-40 of our members are there, and they kind of like cocoon around me, and I go through this thing. Like they did this sort of self-serving investigation, internally. They never talked to any member of the department. And mind you, they've been aboard for a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that. And they put together and highlight like these things. And so when the department shut down, Paul Del Toro went on the news and was like, this is my fault. I did this. I froze the bank accounts. The bank, went back on their deal with me, and a bill didn't get paid. And they sit there and they basically lay out that it's my fault somehow. That would be against the bylaws, against banking authorization, against the policy of the district that I didn't pay a bill. And they frame it like I never had access to like write checks. I wasn't on the bank accounts to sign for a check. My policy limit was $5,000, and this was a $23,000 bill. And they just blame me, and I kind of resist that. And I say, like, okay, so you're going to say that it's against this policy and this bylaw. And it's just like this back and forth thing. And I just get sort of exhausted by it. And one thing I didn't mention is these folks are out to embarrass me personally at this point. They bring a commercial popcorn machine from like a movie theater and lemonade to a meeting where they're going to fire their fire chief. And they're like it's a block party, man. And they're being very rude, very disrespectful. And so eventually in the meeting, I just go, look, like, if you guys want to blame me, that's fine. But like the fire department needs to continue its mission. And so they read these kind of pre-drafted statements and they vote to terminate my employment. And at that point I could have left, but like, I still love my team here. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to stick around. And so, as soon as they're done with my vote, I stand up, and I mean, it's like popcorn being thrown and like, sit the F down, being very rude. And I go, look, like, there's a community here that needs a fire department, and you have just removed me, and that's fine. My recommendation is the best leader left in this department is this captain. He's also the most qualified, and he has the trust and respect of everybody in this room. And they all stand up and they all back that statement. If it can't be Erik, we want this individual. And they accidentally slip and go, oh, we already talked to somebody about this. And it's another captain. And all of a sudden you've got the traitor in the room kind of scenario where they were like, oh my God, he went behind everybody's back. And he is the least qualified captain, least experienced captain. The guy that I had recommended is a career fireman in the community, but very well respected. And they are being super belittling. And there's a statement that gets made by Dave Grote, who's like the secretary, and he goes, we don't want an Erik Jr. here. So, and there's a dichotomy in that situation because in their minds, I'm a bad guy. And so they think by saying that's a positive statement for them. But with my team and everybody that loves and cares for me as their leader, that's super offensive. And so chaos erupts, man. And people start shouting and all this. And I'm just like, guys, calm down. Like, you still got to go to calls. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still people that are going to need your help. And they just kind of continue to belittle everybody in that room. And everybody walked out. And it was sad, man. And then, I'm left without a job. I got to go tell my daughters. I just made a video today where I really broke that down. Like, I had grappled with this moral decision and I was confident in what I was doing. It was the right thing. But now I have to go home and tell 2 teen girls that their dad doesn't have a job, that I don't know how I'm going to pay our mortgage and feed them. And anybody that's a dad out there, like, you got to put on that strong face. And my girls are rock stars. I went home and I said, look, like, I lost my job. It wasn't a surprise. I talked to him and gave him the highlights, right? But the benefit is, for the first time in your life, you're off for summer break and dad's off work. And we're going to spend a lot of time together. And where they're rock stars is I know that they were scared, but they trusted me when I said everything's going to be fine. We hugged and they went to bed. But man, reality hit me. I laid down that night terrified, man. I've had a paycheck since I was 14 years old, steady. And for the first time in life, I didn't. And And so the fear hit, but my team stayed loyal. Like, they all left the department. They were not going to be harassed by people. And the 2 days later, they handed me an envelope of $5,000 to go get a lawyer, which I hadn't had that, like, a fight in me for that. But I filed a lawsuit for First Amendment violations, protected speech, and I've been fighting that for 2 years now. And recently, and why I'm on here is I just started talking about it. I was quiet. I listened to my attorney, like, didn't say anything and fought this battle. But a Biden appointed federal judge who's foreign born just told me, an Army vet recently, that I don't have a First Amendment right to it because she deemed election administration within the scope of my duties as fire chief, which goes against state law, which goes against the employees that the board had hired. But basically ruled and granted summary judgment to dismiss my case. So now I've appealed, which I wasn't going to do. Anybody out there, man, build an army that will back you for everything you do, because I had admitted defeat. I got the ruling and I said, that's it. And I've recovered. I'm in a great position right now. I run emergency services for a county where I grew up. My kids are thriving. My oldest just graduated high school with scholarships. She takes her EMT before on Monday, like, rocking it. We're in good spot. And so 2 years later, it's easy to say, like, I'm good, like, I don't need this. But my army behind me, man, they're like, you can't. Like, it's bigger than you, dude. It's like, if one chief can say, like, here's video evidence of fraud, and be fired for it, none of us are protected. And so I can't. I called my attorney. He said, I want $50,000 up front and I'll file an appeal. And I said, look, bro, like, I've paid you $150,000. I sold my house. You've had that cash in pocket while I wait. And, attorneys are attorneys. So I ended that phone call and just told everybody it was over. And then nobody would let me. And so now I'm pro se. I just my appellate brief just reached the court today, or yesterday, I'm sorry. So it should post tomorrow. But I dug into case law and I wrote it myself. But man, like, all of the First Amendment case law around protected speech and employment backs that this was wrong. And the district court judge has a history of making, these protect the state at all cost rulings. So she was just in the news this week for stopping ICE from doing their thing in Colorado. So that's some of the cards you get dealt. But as I read more case law, all of them end up in the appellate court or the Supreme Court before a ruling. And so I detailed everything, man, and I feel confident in that. And now I'm in a position that, if it takes 10 years to get to the Supreme Court, I owe it to the oath that I took as a citizen. I owe it to the country that I believe in, and I owe it to my brothers and sisters in the public service. Because if it can happen to me, and this case law stands, now there's a precedent that that's okay. And so it's bigger than me. And I'm going to continue to fight it.
Well, and just for everybody that's not aware, once you were given that judgment at the federal district court level, the next process is the federal appeals court, the 10th Circuit, which is out of Denver.
Yep.
Us in Oklahoma, we're under the same appeals court. And then, if they rule one way or the other, it can be appealed to the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court at that point.
Yeah. And I like I said, I feel confident. Like, you hire attorneys to do it, and they don't know the intimate details of everything. And so it had never been pointed out that saying that it was a duty of mine actually goes against state law. And so, a judge can't break law to justify actions, right? But there's other big cases, Lane versus Franks and Garcetti versus Savalos and all those. Like, there is clearly defined case law in tests. And so all the case law basically says this, to summarize it, that protected speech of great public concern is protected, hands down. And if if that can be proven, the second test is called the Pickering analysis. And basically, the state or the entity has to prove that their services or operations were at such peril that like they could take that action, and that's never been argued. And so the district judge, Judge Wang, said that I could not prove the burden, that it was citizen speech, not official duties. And I argue that elections weren't in the job description or duties ever in the history of fire chiefs as an official duty. And so the Supreme Court ruled that there can't be such broad job descriptions to try to encompass protecting criminal stuff. So
Right.
my argument basically is election integrity and election fraud of great public interest? I think everyone, including every listener that hears this, would say, I think that's of pretty big importance to the public. Is it fire chief's job duties to administer and run security for an election? I'm sure everybody has met a fire chief, and I doubt that they're ever viewed in that way. And
if anything, at that point, for security wise, it usually falls on the county sheriff.
Yeah, or the employees at the board or the board itself. That's who runs it, not
not
a
it's not
contract employee.
it's not the chief of the department.
Yeah, and so I am respecting the court process, of course. And so when something posts with the court, it is officially a public document. So on my Justice for Holt pages, when I log in on Pacer, anybody with a Pacer account can go and type in Erik Holt and go to the 10th district, and you can read all the documents. When it posts on there, I'm going to post it on my Justice for Holt Facebook page for everybody to read, because one, education is important. I knew nothing about constitutional law, protected speech, like the ins and outs of it. But now I feel like I've read so much and been a part of this battle that even if I lost, educating people is worth it. And so I'll post it. Please read it.
Yeah, well, and here's the deal. I mean, this is the type of things that people always think happen in big towns that, are super corrupt and they're stuffing the ballot boxes. And this is happening in, I'm not going to say Colorado Springs area is super small, but it's not Chicago or New York where you think that it always happens. Like this if it could happen there, it could happen anywhere.
Yeah. And, corruption runs deep in some places, right? So the things I've learned since this, so the DA finished their investigation in like July timeframe of 2023. And it literally says like, we found evidence, but we're not going to prosecute. And I'm like, I remember getting that phone call and feeling so empty of like, I went outside of my job to protect democracy. And your job is actually to prosecute this, and you're not going to. But since I started sharing the story, somebody actually sent me a Daily Wire article that just came out. The mayor election in May 2023 for the city of Colorado Springs had some election irregularities to it. And there was a racism ploy that happened that the FBI investigated and was fraudulent. And so there was orders in that district attorney's office that anything election was going to get swept under the rug. Andy Vaughn is the guy that made that decision. Deputy DA got arrested himself last year. You can look that up. Andy Vaughn, El Paso County District Attorney's Office. The investigator that I met with, September of 2023, lost his job for harassing a rape victim, sending, pics of his junk to a rape victim, right? So these are the people that I was given and trusted in to do their jobs that completely failed me. But I'm going to keep that fight going. So now I've gone, the state or the county DA failed me. The state attorney general wouldn't do anything. The state of Colorado is hiding from anything election, let me tell you. Now the federal court judge, failed me in that. But the 10th Circuit is the right circuit for this. Most of the major First Amendment protected speech case law comes through the 10th Circuit for some reason. And so I'm confident in that step. But if that fails me, I'll go to the Supreme Court, man. You know, like it's bigger than me. I keep
Have
saying
you
that.
reached out to like the FBI or anybody to try to investigate it on the criminal side at the federal level?
I've had no luck. You know, like unfortunately, the 2020 elections really made election stuff become like a conspiracy theory. And
Oh
so
yeah.
even on my socials, man, like I'm gated down from my reach because hashtag election fraud, right? Or anything like that. So it's a really hard battle. I did report to the FBI and Federal Reserve, the bank fraud stuff. And I basically got 2 letters that came back that said, like, oh, it's not within our jurisdiction for this, but no referral. You know what I mean? So, like, when you're a small fish in a big pond and there's national level politics surrounding this stuff, the 2020 election stuff, right? This last election that seemed to have gone off a lot better, but like the changing of the guard,
Yeah.
when you're in these transitions, it's really, really hard. And I think some of the stuff right now, the judicial kind of overreach that's happening is somewhat in my favor for gaining some voices on this and helping me share it. But socials are gated down. Their algorithms don't like this stuff, so it's really hard, man.
Yeah, it's like you're fighting a stacked deck.
Yeah, and it's easy to give up, man. If I didn't have the army behind me and people to love and care for me, and I have a lot of patriots in my corner. Luckily, my people are army vets and who I served with, and firefighters, and they are tried and true patriots, and they keep pushing me forward. And this whole thing, like I have a real close friend that was like, when I called him and told him it's over, he was like, absolutely not, man. This is what you do. And he actually owns a media company, so he created the Justice for Holt TikTok and Facebook for me, and I do the content. But I got their backing, and he started the GoFundMe for it, which is, it seemed impossible to kind of get that out there. But here I am. I'm on your podcast right now, and I've got others that are interested in talking. So the more that I share, and the more that I have the will to keep going without stopping, that's how grassroots things work.
So I want to ask before I forget, because I have one more thing I want to ask you after this. Um, where can they follow you at? And like if they want to donate to the GoFundMe, where can they go to look that up?
So the easiest thing is Justice for Holt, all one word. I don't know if you can screen share, but it's on Facebook, Justice for Holt, TikTok, same
Okay.
name, and then on GoFundMe, which is on both of those profiles, it's Justice for Holt with the spaces in between the words. But
Okay.
I'm not out for money. This is just to kind of keep the court fees running.
Absolutely.
It costs $600 just to file that appellate brief, and every time you file something, there's a fee to it. I did just file another lawsuit against them as individuals in the District Court of Colorado, which isn't federal; it's just county court. Hopefully, this doesn't post before Monday because they get served Monday for that. So
Okay. I can hold off to Monday for you.
no, post it. They won't see this yet.
So let me ask you this. After it goes through the court process, we're at where you're at now. Have you had any contact with any of these board members? Have they tried to still harass you, or are they still, anything like at all trying to like get in contact with you?
I had one reach out. Judy Dunn did, and I basically told her to go to hell. I don't live with hate in my heart, but these 5 people and the people they're associated with like took everything from my ability to raise my daughters, and I got to keep that fire in my heart to keep this going. The harassment is still going. I mean, like they will post board messages, meeting stuff. There's only one left actually on the board now, which is Paul Del Toro. 2 of them resigned within probably the first 6 months, and then the other 2 dropped out of this last election, didn't run for their positions again, and then Paul Del Toro won. But what happens with criminals and crooks, man, is the loyalties aren't built on what good people's are, and so they're fractured, and they all talk bad about each other. But I just got a message from a friend out there that like yesterday they were talking smack still on me. They used to post stuff like constantly, and one thing like I can say is by sharing this, like I was naive to it. I was a fire chief. I'm really good at one thing in life, and that's public service and firefighting. I've never been in a criminal mindset. So when they fired me, they posted like, "Oh, we're drilling locks and we're doing this and we're doing that," and I was naive to it because I was like, "That sounds stupid." And then the very next board meeting, they accused that we stole everything and there was nothing left and no files and no like hard drives are wiped and all that. And it dawned on me. They had to get rid of me. And actually on my page, I didn't mention that in this conversation, like they were hyper fixated on give us access to the security system. It was number one thing in the first email I ever got. What's the location and password and information to get into this? So when they fired me, they literally
Which is
spent
wild to think about.
yeah, insane. Like I ran for election to run a fire district. Give me the security camera.
Yeah, that would be probably like the top 5 things on my
Right. Yeah, and that's the stuff I'm showing people on my pages, but there's no way I could cover all of it on this. But the night that they got rid of me and everybody else, they burned and deleted every bit of evidence that could have been used against them. And they have sold that story over and over again. They accused our firefighters like stealing radios and stuff because what they did is they deleted by accident like the inventory tracking. And so our people were pretty smart where they had video of them turning it in and pictures of the serial numbers. So there's like this one, Alan Schultz on like the community pages was like, oh, they stole this and they should be charged and all this stuff. And then one of our volunteers got on and was like, here's a picture and a video of me turning it in to the interim chief, and then it kind of like, oh, we'll change the narrative a little bit. So it's still going, man. But I really don't think they know I'm out here telling the story yet. I don't live in that area anymore. I got a bunch of friends that do, but I have nothing to prove to those people. I have everything to prove to this country and our Constitution and my children, first of all. So, I don't know that they're aware of everything happening. Like they're going to get served another thing, and that goes after them personally. They're not protected by the district. For 4 of them, they're not even part of the district anymore. So that's going to be a big surprise, man. Yep. And anybody can stand in front. And something I learned, when you're fired from your job, you lose something. People look at you a little different, whether they're close to you or so everybody in the community and people that I knew, and I understand it, but they had to go, there's got to be something true there if you got fired, because you can't talk about a criminal investigation. So I couldn't talk about that for 2 years, man. So, there was a lot of isolation there, and anybody that gets in that situation, prepare your mind for it. But it is worth standing up for what we are founded on. I've been blessed so much in the last 2 years. My kids are thriving. I have a better job now. I am doing amazing. I've spent everything I worked for in life to fight this, and that hurts. But money ain't the game here. We have bigger costs.
Doing what's right.
Mm-hmm. And that comes at a cost. I talked about that today on my page when I did the content. It comes at a cost, and you got to be prepared for that. But without people doing that, we have nothing left in this country. We don't.
Yep, that's very true. And you're absolutely right in that. Once they get rid of you, people look at you and think, well, there's got to be a reason they got rid of them. Like, it has to be true. Yep. And it doesn't make it right, but it happens. And you've had to rebuild your reputation because of a house of lies,
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, I interviewed coast to coast, looking for a job. And I mean, I had to keep track of it because I was in a lawsuit. and try to figure out what damages there would be. Um, there's not enough money in the world to like make the situation better, right? That's not what
Yep.
any of it's about. Like I am so blessed that my kids are healthy and they're thriving in life, and I got one going off into the adult world with a great head on her shoulders. But that's the punitive side of when you do something wrong, the courts make you do that. So I had to track all of this, and I had probably 100 jobs that I interviewed for. And I'm extremely qualified in the fire service. Like I have every certification you could and a bachelor's degree, and I went to Cornell for an executive program. Like I can compete, right?
Yeah.
But every single one of them for about a year and a half said, "So your last job, were you terminated for cause?" Yes, I was, and I have to answer that truthfully. And you can go on and see the stuff that was being put in papers, right? Like it's just not. It's a black eye, and so I'm no longer a fire chief, probably for that because I couldn't find. Well, I take that back. There was some opportunities, but ultimately, where I'm at now is the best job that I was offered, and I'm extremely happy in it. And still have a prominent position in the safety of the county I live in, which happens to be where I grew up too. So I actually have family now in the district that I
Well,
serve.
that makes it even better.
Absolutely, and that's what I say. I've been blessed, man. Like I make more. I'm around family. My kids are around family. My daughter just graduated from the high school I graduated from. So through trials and tribulations, man, there's so many blessings. And I'm just, man, I wake up every morning with a clear conscience and a smile on my face and just proud of what my kids have learned throughout this,
Well, Eric, it's been my pleasure to have you on tonight to bring light to this. And, if you'd like to come back on eventually and there's more updates and everything, you let me know. And I will shoot you my number, and we can stay in contact. And kind of like you said, there's not really a monetary value that can be attached to it, but for fighting the good fight against corruption, I tip my cap to you because it's much needed.
Well, thank you. And I will absolutely take you up on it as soon as there's an update with the appellate, which is probably 9 months, 10 months from now. I would love to come back on and keep everybody up to date, man. This story is going to keep going until it's rectified and like people are aware that these things happen, and district by district, coast to coast, man, we're going to make this country a better place. I mean, free of corruption.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Eric, stay in touch with me, and I'll let you enjoy your night. Thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it, Brent, man. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, brother.